wherever you are, whatever your exposure, whatever your level of intelligence and so on, you can't do it alone. You must have the community uh, talk with you, tell you what their needs are, tell you what their demands are. And leadership means being able to fulfill those things for the people. All the things you named, yeah, I can take them one by one and analyze why I found necessary to go and do those things, and then how they integrate one with another. Because if you look at it, um, if you want to do an airport, if you want to do a science park, if you want to do an MRO building, there's no way you want to do those things depending on NEPA as we had it. You have to have a power plant. And these are the things I realized that yes, agriculture is great, but we don't have vast agricultural land like most other states have. So technology was going to be our main thrust, and also in industry. So we thought of the science park, we thought of the seaport, we thought about all these other things that really would bring development, create a base for growth of other things to come out of. For instance, if we, by the time we started the science park, we actually had an understanding that the company would make cell phones, that they would come and start to assemble cell phones in Akwa, and later on, gradually, we will be producing parts and then eventually making cell phones there. And you remember the young brothers who had invented AVR, and we said we were going to incubate it and commercialize it. So really, technology was the thrust that drove me into some of the things that we did. Of course, you could not ignore housing, you could not ignore the health of the people, you could not ignore education. So the schools followed, the hospitals followed, and so on. So, and all this is because when I wanted to come into office, I had 32 committees working on various aspects of life for acquiring people. And it was bringing together of the results of all this committee work that brought out an agenda. Today, I want to advocate that before anybody should come and say he wants to lead, now, let me not talk about governance, because governance is, I mean, you are coming to lead because everybody, we have ideas, we just want you to be a leader and lead us to achieve the things that we want to accomplish. You must communicate with the people. You must allow the make it possible for people to tell you what they think they need, and then you sift it through and then come through. So the leadership has to communicate with the people, and if you communicate well, you are likely to satisfy the yearnings of the people. I will ask a rhetorical question. How many in this panel can say honestly that in the last whatever length of time, 1 year, 2 years, they've had an intelligent discussion or conversation with the person that's supposed to be their representative, even in the House of Assembly, not to mention in the National Assembly, that's the House of Reps of the Senate. You don't see them. And the method by which they get there is not because they really seriously needed your vote. Yes, we had an election, we had elections all the time, but did they really come through the fact that these are the people we selected? And that's why, in thinking about all of these things, generally, I feel that the system of government that we have today, this presidential system, is not working for Nigeria. It is not at all working for Nigeria. I feel that the parliamentary system that we had before made it possible for those representing the communities to be elected by the communities themselves, not the party, not the law courts. Because today we find that half the people that are sitting in office are sitting there by the grace of the court, having been chosen in the first instance by the party rather than by the community. So if you have a parliamentary system, you can have a system in which take a small community like even any of the federal constituencies, the people will know who they would like at any one point in time to represent them. And there will be no rigging. You cannot read, because you cannot read the conscience of the people. And they know this man that goes there or woman that goes there to represent that community will know that it has to satisfy the yearnings of that community. If it goes into a parliament and the prime minister or the premier says, I want to do so, say, no, you don't want to do anything. You will do only what we, the people, want you to do. My people don't want what you are saying you want to do. And there'll be an argument, and there'll be an understanding. So eventually, whatever the government does will be what the people themselves want. And that is the key thing in leadership and in governance. And apart from that aspect, the cost of the election itself would have come down tremendously, because right now, for you to campaign across the whole state, if you want to be governor, or across the whole country, if you want to be president, it's tremendously expensive, and therefore it becomes an exclusive club. Only those who are so sponsored, and they are sponsored for a purpose. When you go there, this is what I want you to do for me. And your treasury goes to support whatever ideas the sponsors have, rather than what the people want. We should get away from that. We should get away from this very expensive election. We should get away from the fact that the people are not the people's choice for leadership or for representation. And we should, that's why I am strongly advocating today that we need to go back to the parliamentary system. And when we go to that parliamentary system, we should make sure that we have a federal arrangement. In a federal arrangement, every federating unit is supposed to be coordinated with the center, not subordinate. Today, we find the federal government comes in and decides what it wants a state or a federating unit to do. It should not happen that way. In the early days, and I remember those days when we started, we first had independence, there were 3 federating units. Later on, a 4th one was added. And those federating units, the 3 federating units we started with, had their own constitutions. We started with 4 constitutions for Nigeria. There was a national constitution, there was a constitution for the West, there was a constitution for the East, and there was a constitution for the North. And even those federating units had representation in the UK, apart from the Nigerian representative in the UK. So you had that level of freedom, that level of autonomy, and there was no envy, there was no jealousy, there was no rivalry, but healthy competition. We must make a distinction between competition and rivalry. There was competition and not rivalry. And what I mean by that is the West was able to pay 5 shillings as minimum wage. The East paid 3, the North paid 2. They get free education in the West, you didn't have anywhere else. And nobody was envious because you develop with what you have. In a federation, yes, there are equal opportunities, but not equal means. But it also meant, and while I was living in Kaduna, the Kaduna state had enough money, but didn't have the facility to do a wood industry. So they invested in something called Calvin Ply, which is Calabar Veneer Plywood Industry. So you can go and invest in resources in somebody else's federating unit and make money out of it. That's the beauty of a federation. It does not mean that you are confined to your boundaries, you are confined to what you know. It means that you are a Nigerian, you happen to come from this part of the country, and you can make your living, and your federating unit can make money out of every and any other part of Nigeria. That's what it should be. And honestly, if we can just go back to the principles of true federalism really means you must have the federation taking full control of the resources to the extent of providing their own security. Recently, only 2 days ago, we heard that Amotogun went and rescued the wife of the chief of staff to the governor of Ondo State. It was not the Nigeria police, it was Amotogun. Amotogun, we know, is the regional security outfit. There's no way you can tell me that somebody can be sent from somewhere and he'll be more interested in my security than the person whose life depends on what I do as a government, if you like. So really, we must have this true federalism that comes along with full control of local resources by the federating unit, full security, and then agriculture should be developed by by the federating unit, so should all these other things, because the federal government has no land apart from the federal capital territory. So why should the federal government do anything more than just maybe make policy? What is it doing with agriculture? What is it doing with all these other items that are supposed to be on the concomitant list with the federating units? So we need true federalism with all it entails, and I'm advocating that we go back to the parliamentary system. To be able to achieve this, we cannot amend this constitution to accept all the conditions. We must come up with a new constitution for Nigeria. And I think our parliamentarians should be persuaded to see that as a need and begin to work towards how that can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. This is where I insist that the wisdom of statesmen of your caliber should be, captured and well preserved for generations unborn to be able to tap into it as a source of study and a guide to implement all that we wish for as citizens. Thank you again, Your Excellency. It is important to note that I wouldn't know, but the word of it said, the man who saw tomorrow. At the time that you conceived technology to be the fulcrum of most of the things you did, the science park, the science and technology park, the University of Technology, and of course you created the Ministry of Science and Technology in Akwa Ibom. And Akwa Ibom was one of the first states that had an ICT program. At the time that ICT was not, top, it was not well recognized across the state, at least from a point of view of subnational governments. You had that vision and you pushed it through as much as you did in that era. So it is important that today, thanks to COVID, we are here sitting under, technology to be able to meet as against trying to do physical meetings. So we imagine what would have happened to Akwa Ibom if the Technology University had given impetus to the science park, and everything you seemed to do throughout that period was connected. You needed to find a way for all the investors to come in, and it was important to have an airport. Everybody that was coming was definitely going to be housed or quartered at the hotel, and you just did not consider the hotel as it were. You added a tourist attraction within the Ibom Gulf, state of the art, well designed by IMG, and that legacy lies there today. So all of all of this vision that you put together seems to be the pivot to which other governments and other subnational governments, and including Akwa Ibom, have tried to enhance over the years. So clearly, it is a thing of pride to be associated with you, and I'm sure that every member of the panel and participants are elated to hear from you. Thank you again, sir. We're going to ask that you stay some more with us a little bit, so that some of us can also share thoughts in the way and manner that might require a bit of response. So I do have within the panel, I have a couple of gentlemen who I'm going to introduce shortly, but it will be good to, first of all, the gentleman that worked through the housing plan that was captured in the Shelter Afrique. I think himself, he would do a proper introduction of his role in Shelter Afrique and an authority that he is in housing. He's also a top citizen that encourages engagement across board. He has various advocacy and good governance models. He owns the ideology of social governance. And I'd like to introduce another architect. Coincidentally, it seems that the art of laying the foundation rests or resides with architects. So I'd like to introduce architect Ezekiel Nyaetok to have the floor and share his thoughts alongside his vision and story. Thank you very much. Welcome on board, architect Ezekiel Nyaetok. You are muted now.
Wow, thanks so very much for this privilege. The very first thing is I wish I didn't have to talk. I'll be too happy to spend the next 2 hours listening to my boss, a man that I still have something against so seriously that he didn't make me his successor. And I told him that if there was one person that believed in him and understood him, I think it was the main reason I contested the governorship. Because if you were there at the time of architect Obong Victor Attah, you would cry when he was leaving the stage, because there is a word that I heard for the first time from him, and that word has resonated with me over the years till tomorrow. And that expression is cerebral governance. You know, today we don't do governance, we do politics. Today, if you are cerebral, you are against the system. Nobody wants to deal with anybody that is intellectual, that is cerebral. They want to deal with people who are loyal because they don't understand what governance is all about. Architect Obong Victor Attah should have been a national consultant on development. He understood development, he understood governance, he understood democracy. You know, if you look at the Constitution, you would see a place that I can never quote enough. Chapter 2, Section 14, subsection 2B states categorically that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. That is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Unless you understand that section of the Constitution, every other thing you are doing is a waste of time. It's about the people. It's about the welfare, the well-being of the generality of the people. And you look at solving the problems of the people from different dimensions. Architect Obong Victor Attah thought in terms of what will bring development to the state. He was able to be a man that saw tomorrow, which is what leadership is all about, on account of which he evolved a thought pattern that it's like good music, brought everything together, and what you saw was a state that had a direction, had a theme, had a purpose. But because we did not, let me just put myself, all of us, did not understand what this was all about. Rather, we saw the paraphernalia of office. We saw the power of office. We saw the perks of office. And when we got in there, we got consumed by this and we lost the essence. We veered off the direction. I had a 2 hours interview with architect Obong Victor Attah. I don't know if he still remembers, but I still have the tapes. And it was a program called Our Destiny. There was a time when he fought like a wounded lion for us at the expense of enjoying the friendship with Abuja. He dared to walk alone. And somewhere along the line, I heard the president then say that architect Obong Victor Attah was doing his own thing and not what the people of Akwa Ibom were doing. I saw a very direct attempt to isolate a man who was working for the people. And I said, no, that it cannot be true. And I made it clear that the people were directly behind him. So we created that program, Our Destiny. And at the end is a story that will be told one day, someday, somehow. I deployed my resources. I think that it was towards the end that architect Obong Victor Attah asked who sponsored the program. I said, I did. I paid. He said, you cannot do this. And he asked for the bill. And as at that time, I'd spent over 8 million of my personal money. He asked that I be refunded the whole money. I believed in this man as if my life depended on it, because he worked with his whole heart for the people. As at the time, I wish today was about him. I could spend the next 1 hour talking about him. But coming back, now, by the time, I don't know if Nigerians remember that Uyo was the second city in Nigeria that the GSM rolled out. Uyo was the second after Lagos. Before Abuja, it was Uyo. If you do a synthesis of this man's understanding of government and governance, you will weep why Nigeria has become the poverty capital of the world when people like architect Obong Victor Attah is still alive and still strong. Listening to him, he doesn't talk like a man that is 82. He's competing with me at 57, and then, God will give him. After this, I'm finding it difficult to go into nationalism, governance, responsibility, because I just see a man who personifies all that we seek to have in governance. Listen to his submission. How many of us are not aware that we don't run governance, we run politics, and that we invest so much in politics, and that we do? Let me even just end on this, because I think I'm getting a little bit maybe emotional and not as coordinated as I wish I was. If you take my state, you would realize that the second most important document in any country outside of the Constitution is the budget. And you are aware, Mr. Odeme, my brother, of what we are doing a forensic analysis of what our budget is. And this is a national program, so let me not go into details. But I dare say that any right-thinking person will have a migraine, not just ordinary headache, looking at that. So let others say something. Probably a time will come when I'll be able to say something again. But suffice it to say that we are blessed to have architect Obong Victor Attah, and we will do anything to get him to talk to us again. And Your Excellency, people are listening, people are hearing, and the seeds you sowed are growing. Forget about what you seem to be seeing now. In your lifetime, you are going to see your dream come to pass. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect Ezekiel Nyaito, DG of Nigeria First, another movement that seeks to demand responsibility at every turn. Some of the issues that you've raised brings me to a particular story about Obong Victor Attah. I would say the story for this time. I recall there was a moment he traveled overseas for a holiday or his vacation for that year, and returned, and he found loads of people at the airport rushing to come, receive him. And the way he recounted that story, he said it was one of the most embarrassing moments of his life, having lived and traveled around the world several times. And he discouraged that level of sycophancy and condemned it in its entirety. And some of those lessons and stories are that constitute the hallmark of his statesmanship and leadership. And having said that, it's important, just hold on, Architect, because I know you're revving to go that route. Let me, so that we can deviate a bit, and everybody, our followers and friends on Facebook and YouTube are having a good time enjoying this moment but so that we can actualize the policy conversation around good governance and nation building. Yes, we have a strategic nation builder of note, and we will glean as much as we can to capture or learn as many share as much of his wisdom as we can. But I'd like to invite to give us a legal perspective some of the issues that His Excellency raised around presidential system, parliamentary system of government, are some of the conversations that our esteemed legal mind, Hannibal Uwaifo. Hannibal Uwaifo is president of the Southeast South-South Professionals, and he's also the president of the African Bar Association. Welcome, Hannibal. Thanks for being a part of this series too. It's good to have you. I'm sure you throw some legal and the legal dimension before the architects, redesign our thought process. So give us your thoughts around some of the issues that you wish to discuss, as well as some of the conversations holding up so far. Thank you so much. You're welcome. I've asked to unmute. Can you go ahead straight, please? Hannibal Uwaifo.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
You're clear. I hear you. Go straight ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Udeme. I want to thank you for inviting me. I want to thank His Excellency Governor Victor Attah, Obong Victor Attah, for he elucidated really on the issues I wanted to talk on. He's an experienced man. I know him very well. Had some brushes with him in Lagos, and I think he's in a better position to tell us so much, and he has done so this evening. So I want to thank him for the job he did in Iboro, which is a reference point in the annals of governance in this country. And I think that a lot of people are taking cue from what he has done. I'm particularly very pleased with his perspective about governance and the constitution and law. What are you doing? If you have a diverse people as Nigeria, what should we be doing? Do you run the central government, or do you run the government where people bring in their representatives and deal with it? That's what Obong Victor Attah is talking about. So we've missed the point, and that's why this country we call Nigeria, who is our homeland and where we all cherish, will probably not move far, because what we have at the moment are people who are, with due respect, visionless, who are unable to understand and who are unable to respond. You don't keep doing things the same way and intend to have a change. So why change is in the mouth, but in their hearts, it's something totally different. And their behavior is totally different. The executive is unable to respond to the yearnings of the people in 2020, 2021. The legislature is dumb, unable to understand the dynamics of politics and what's going on in the country. Even when we were clear, the judiciary is doing its best, but it's comatose in the face of intimidation and the constitution that restricts it to so many things, or that tends to put the judiciary in a straitjacket. I give you an instance. We had the NSAS protest going on for 2 weeks, and you have a government sitting down who could not understand that a protest that will last that long can become something else. Those are the type of problems we have in Nigeria. Leadership that do not think, people who are obstinate, people who do not think of tomorrow, people who think only of themselves, people who do not think of the future of their country, people who want to enjoy where they did not sow, people who want to live in the moon, even when, because there are no roads, people who will even hire jets to stay in the moon if it was possible. So I want to thank the governor, Obong Victor Attah, for telling us the reality on ground. If you look at the way the country is, with our different religions, with our different ethnicity, with our different backgrounds, I think what he said best with us is a parliamentary system of government. And quite frankly, Your Excellency, that's what I believe personally. The Southeast South Professional is even more profound, and I represent today, by the grace of God, as president, is even more profound in its analysis, because we have seen it from every perspective. that the constitution of this country, the way it is presently structured, cannot lead the country anywhere. You have a federation where there are no federation units. You have a government where everything is centralized. You have an exclusive legislative list that virtually deals with everything. You have the residual list that deals really with nothing. And then you have a concurrent list that is totally, amoebic. So we have a big problem. How do we respond to these issues? First and foremost, if we claim that the legislature represents the people, I'm unable to agree because they have not shown that in a demonstrable manner. If you say the executive representing us, how are they going to do that? Because you are seeing more and more of ethnic jingoism, nepotism, and all kinds of things going on in terms of appointment. A few weeks back, I was at the FCC to talk about the Economic and Financial Accounts Commission and why we cannot stop corruption. Because when there's no audit in a hunter, it becomes a haunted. And that's what we keep seeing from place to place. However, the governance, politics has become the order of the day. Governance is at the back corner. So I agree with Obong Victor Attah, and I agree with this policy dialogue series. We need a legal framework to deal with issues. First and foremost, let me look at the legal issues. What is a federation? Is that what we're practicing? We took the American federalism without knowing the root cause that it came from the American School of Realism, which actually I'm not going to dig deep to when I want to talk about the different schools of law. Is that where Nigeria started from? If you look at the history of Nigeria, you are going to find out that we are coming from somewhere. But is that where we develop our constitution? No. Constitution were imposed on us with the different ethnic groups being subdued, with a central police force, with a central immigration, with a central custom, with a central school system, with a central bank, with everything central. The governors have virtually nothing to do. That's the reason why security is not tackable. We can do whatever we like from now to next year, from now to 100 years, unless we focus on structuring this country and dealing with governance structure rather than strong men. We are not going to get anywhere. With due respect for me, I won't lie to you, and I'm not going to say anything different. I think the government we have today is a total failure. It's a failure not because it's set out to fail, it's a failure because it has refused to do what is correct. And so what do we find from day to day is lies upon lies upon lies, and it doesn't help anybody. Look at the SARS riot. Things that we should deal with very squarely were never dealt with. What are we doing? We keep telling lies and fighting the world while people are just laughing at us. So it's a big problem we need to tackle. So if we are going to have any progress in this country, we can do so within the next few years if issues of structure of this country, as slightly pointed by His Excellency Dr. Victor Attah, is tackled, if the issue of nationalism is tackled, if every ethnic nationalism is given their dues and their roles to play constitutionally, then the country will move forward. Centralizing government is only going to make the country worse.
Oh, that's some serious legal fireworks from our president of African Bar Association. Thank you, Hannibal Uwaifo, for your thoughts. It is indeed a long list of challenges and issues surrounding our nation. But yes, we'll get to a point where we'll shoot straight and begin to proffer solutions, because we can have a conversation around how much trouble and challenges that we face the whole night. And I want to thank you especially for attending and sharing your thoughts. We would come back to you to give us some more perspective with regards to electoral reforms, with regards to judicial autonomy. These are the issues that we have as a nation. If we continue to, like you've rightly captured, if we continue to build strong men instead of strong institutions, then we cannot make as much progress as we desire. So it's important at this point. There is a gentleman that I'd like to, introduce and bring to the mic. He's a diasporan who found his way back home on time, and on arrival, he gave the presidency a very strong shot, became a candidate and championed the cause of a particular political party and ran for the presidency in the 2019 elections. Dr. Asukwo Mendie Archibong is a lawyer by profession, and he'll further introduce himself. I'd like to yield and allow him share some of his thoughts. Perhaps this is part of why he decided to shoot for the highest office in the land. And in this room, there is only one authority that has tremendous experience in governance to that level, but you must have had some, some passion and some reason to want to run for presidency. So can you share some of your thoughts and plans with specific solutions without dwelling on the challenge? Because I do know that we are challenged, as it were. We're challenged emotionally, and like I like to share with people, folks do not wish, like my brother captured, folks do not wish that intelligent people should have the space. They just believe that everything is about is wishful thinking. So please go right ahead, Dr. Archibong, and give us. You have about 5 to 10 minutes to share your thoughts as much as you want.
Thank you very much, Udeme. I'm grateful, and good evening, Your Excellency. It's a pleasure to actually hear you and to appear on this panel with you. It's something that I never dreamt would ever happen, and it has happened today that I'm actually hearing you speak on governance and what it takes to lead a people. Generally, when I spoke with them, I told him that I will speak about strengthening and deepening democratic institutions. No matter the laws that
You're freezing. If you can hear me, you're freezing. Dr. Chibong?
Well, yeah, I think it's running. I think his network is not supporting.
Yes, frozen. We'll get,
maybe. Okay. What I'll do is I'll log out and log back in.
No, okay? We hear you now. You're clear now. You're back on.
Okay.
No, but it's still red. It's still red. It's still red. It was freeze again.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Would it be appropriate for me to log out and log back in? Network has been a little bit unstable with Ethel.
All right.
Okay, so go.
All right. While he's trying to log out and log in, yeah, I think I have a couple of interventions to make here and to put us and guide us through. Because the truth of the matter is that, as I mentioned earlier on in my opening remarks, the problems and the issues are plethora. They are quite a plateful, and I believe very strongly that, and I think Bangata mentioned it, that we are getting to that place where intelligent leadership, and that's by that I mean bold, audacious, and daring leadership must be what we are looking for now. So I'm expecting that while these interventions are coming in, the people are making some notes, and because we will get into a question and answer session where comments to be made, and Obong Attah has made a comment about whether it's the parliamentary system that will be better off than the presidential system. Of course, the argument and the jury is out there, whether the challenge is with the system or with the people that run the system. Because both ways, you will still require people that will represent the people, whether as a member of National Assembly or a member of Parliament, member of Parliament. But I'm also looking forward to people making comments around the institutions of state that drive democracy, that drive good governance. It's important that we touch those things in our conversations, because at TBAN, we have discovered that no matter what it is that we want to do, if, for instance, you do not have a credible INEC that is prepared and resolute and in a thinking that we want to conduct a free and fair and credible election, you will never get the kind of results, that you want. If, for instance, just as Hannibal has mentioned, we don't push for constitutional restructuring, engage ourselves as a people one-on-one and look at the ground the document, and ask ourselves, this document, is it working as presently structured? So I'm thinking that as we get these interventions, let's find, how do we get a constitutional restructuring? How do we get our brothers in the North to accede and acquiesce to constitutional restructuring, seeing that it is benefiting a set of the people? What is the incentive for somebody who is already benefiting from the system as is? Why would he agree that the system will be restructured? So the conversation must come up, and they must see truth and open heart and open mind from everybody concerned, so that people can be able to engage, and we can do this as a family and as a country. And thirdly, the thing I think that love must be a governance model, which was what Architect Nieto was talking about. The love for the people. The essence of governance is for the welfare of the people. The moment you lose this, you begin to build superstructures on nothing. So I'm hoping that when our guy comes back, we will speak on this and move away from people as it were, individuals as it were, and move to the systems that carry the individuals. Because until these systems are ensured that they are not wobbly, if they are not shaky, then we're going to find it pretty difficult. So just to reiterate, we need to begin to look at what will assist us as a people and as a country to encourage intellectual leadership, intelligence leadership, which I believe is where it all begins and rises up. So I think the next person may speak if our last guest has not.
I am back.
Okay, welcome back, Dr. Mendie.
Okay, great.
Okay, sorry about that. I hope that the network remains stable. What I was talking about was, regardless of the laws that you impose on people, regardless of the laws that you formulate for people to observe, if we do not have the people in place who are actually obeying those laws, it will not work. So, invariably, what do we need to do? Two things. We need to have the right people run for different positions in government. That's number one. Number two, we need to strengthen our democratic institutions. By strengthening our democratic institutions, I'm talking about strengthening, first of all, let there be separation of powers, and let that separation of powers be obvious and visible. Let there be independence of the different arms of governance. The arm that pulls the purse string should not try to dictate to the other arms of government. Generally, we find out that the judiciary bears the brunt of the fact that they don't have a police force and they don't pull the purse strings. So we must always protect the judiciary, the judiciary arm, the judicial arm in the tripartite democratic institutions. Now, let's also look at the executive branch. The executive branch has a lot of power, and that power begins and ends only to the extent that they execute the laws and the rules as enacted by the Federal House of Assembly and the Senate. So the executive branch must be watched by the fourth realm, which is the media. They must be watched and carefully observed so that we take cognizance of the fact that they are obeying the laws and executing the things that they're supposed to execute, and in accordance with the laws of the Federation of Nigeria. And most significantly, we also have to get the right people into the National Assembly, being the Senate and the Federal House of Assembly. Because if we do not have the right persons here, we are going to have a rubber stamp National Assembly and a rubber stamp Senate. Now, the oversight functions of the Senate and the oversight functions of the Federal House of Assembly must be must be vigorously pursued. They must be diligent in so doing. Otherwise, it will all come to naught. We will have the executive run ramshot over not just the National Assembly being the Federal House of Assembly and the Senate, but also run ramshot over the judiciary as well. Look, we cannot have a judiciary that is weakened in any manner. So what do we need to do? We need to ensure that whatever the judiciary needs, especially financially, that it is allocated to them. That any form of influence that is brought to bear on the judiciary will be exposed, and such a person that brings that influence on the judiciary is appropriately punished, whether it is a lawyer, whether it is a civilian who is not a lawyer, whoever it might be, that person is severely and appropriately punished. Now, what other democratic institutions can we strengthen? Look, there must be a multiplicity of political parties. That's just a fact. If you have only one or two political parties, you're going to create a bottleneck for people to fight tooth and nail for different positions, political positions in the society. So we must expand the playground. We must expand the political playground so that the right people can come in and compete and contest. If you'll be very kind enough, Ms. Mary Manuel, to mute your microphone, I'll be very grateful, Ms. Mary Manuel. We must expand the political playground so that every other person that so desires can come in and play. When we talk about, it's very distracting. When we talk about strengthening the democratic institutions, we also have to go down to the state level and strengthen the state houses of assembly, not just the state houses of assembly. Ms. Mary Manuel, can somebody mute everyone? I'm hearing the feedback from her. Not just the federal houses that have to be strengthened. We have to go all the way down to the state houses of assembly and strengthen the democratic institutions at the state level, not just the state houses of assembly. We must also strengthen the different state judiciaries. We must also, I don't know how much stronger we can make the governors of the different states. Frankly, too much power is concentrated in there. But generally, we need to strengthen the institution. Strengthening the institution does not mean going to give it more power, but it means that whoever occupies a certain position knows that they are serving the people, not serving themselves. That it is Nigeria first in everything that they do, or whatever state that they reside in. That is their constituency, and that is what they're supposed to focus on. Once we strengthen our democratic institutions, believe me, we are going to have a much better country, generally speaking. And once we strengthen these democratic institutions as well, you're going to have doctors, lawyers, people of good character, people who actually have the love of the nation at heart, that will step up and say, hey, I want to participate in the governance of my country, either as a political appointee or as a person who runs for the government. I'll rest my case here.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Archibong. That was you didn't mention the party, but I do recall that there was a candidate in the last 2019 elections for Iran for presidency. And we also have another very erudite candidate. He ran in the state as as he was a gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Iboro Otu. I'm asking you to unmute, and I do know that you have a lot of fire, and you have ideas around what governance should be, and it is your opportunity to share your thoughts. Please go right ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, sir. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to say good evening to everyone, and especially to our former governor, our father, Obong Victor Attah. Happy birthday to you, sir, and it's such a pleasure to be on this platform with you. You inspired a lot of us to look at leadership differently and do things differently. And I always, when you used to come to our house once in a while during the campaigns and afterwards, and the many lessons we learned from political strategy, listening and watching how conversations we had around the table. And of course, we thank you again for using all the resources, the limited resources you had at the time to develop the state to where it is today. And with hindsight, telling us what would work leading into the future. But as we get into the future, it's my hope that we can find ways to engage the system as it is to get more rewards moving forward. And please permit me to borrow from you the definition of leadership, which is that leadership, good governance is all about leadership that comes from community. And what that necessarily means is that the interest of the people is being reflected in governance, and that means hearts of minds of the people, the needs of the people are being met, because when that is done, we have good leadership. But then the conversation always is, how do we get there? How do we get the right people to get there? And of course, I read some questions here in the chat room where people are saying, for us to move, whether we want to be a federal system or parliamentary system, we need our senators and House of Reps members and to work on documents. And unfortunately, we have a situation where we have people that have the knife and the yam. So how do you tell someone that is enjoying and taking advantage? How do you tell someone that is taking advantage of a system, or who the system is favorable to change the system to favor everyone? So the way forward now is to see how we can take advantage of an existing system to bring about some kind of change while we get to the destination we want, where we can start putting in great people in position of power to move forward, so we can have a good governance, which leads to strategic nation building. And having engaged the system, I quickly came to realize that one of the ways that we can quickly do this is through electoral reform. And if we can find a way to get the present house to get the president to move forward in that direction, we would have solved 50% of our problems. But then beyond that, it's okay to ask for people to engage, but then the people that count the votes and the other things that happen, whether it's in the courts or wherever, election tribunals, also affect how we come about choosing our leaders. So with my organization, Alert Nigeria, which I work with, and Alert Africa, we found a way of bringing international pressure on what's happening on the African continent, especially in Nigeria. And our activities led to the visa ban. And I am happy and very proud to say that we are on our way to the International Criminal Court to go beyond policy level punitive measures like the visa ban put in place by different countries to actual institutionalization, where we can use avenues like political repression, which is an act against humanity in the ICC Charter, to put in place punitive measures where when elections take place and one can approach the International Criminal Court through the angle of political repression because of probably vote buying incidences or political thuggery. And we can get the international community or members of the ICC to say, okay, you can go ahead, whoever, whether it's a president or it's a governor, you can go ahead with your leadership, but we won't support you with grants or loans, and we won't give you access to any kind of funding from us, and neither would we legitimize your government. And that would force such government to turn around. And also what that does when there's international pressure, like the visa ban, for example, or international trials, it will incentivize young people to engage. And why I'm saying this is because politics is all about numbers. And when we look at our numbers, we realize that in Nigeria, like in the last elections, for example, we had about 84 million people that were eligible to vote, but only about 27 million actually did that. Over 57 million people didn't vote. And people between the ages of 18 to 40 make 80% of our population. That is 160 million. So basically about 120 million people they politically engaged when they could have. So we need to find ways to get these people to get in. And one of the ways to do that is by showing them that we are strengthening our political system. We are strengthening the electoral system. That is, on one side, Nigeria in itself, creating this, passing this electoral act where we can now use digital systems to engage politically. And secondly, international organizations, countries and organizations, yes, putting in certain punitive measures across the continent in terms of visa ban, which has already taken place, and international trials to mitigate the challenges that we have. And this brings me to what's happening presently in the country. Because a large number of Nigerians are young people, with the NSAS protest and other things that have been happening in the country, we can see that young people are ready to engage politically. The secondary question would be, how ready are they? How do they understand what leadership is? Are we able to pass across the information for them, for them to understand this responsibility? And are we able to have a system where we can pick this from amongst ourselves and amongst Nigerians, people that can represent the interest of the general population in leadership? And I can say confidently that we've been able to find certain ways to do that, even with a broken system as it is. Come 2023 and with the local government elections coming, for example, we right now have a case in Akwa Ibom State where one of the small mushroom political parties, as it were, won at ward level. And at the moment, the state government is trying to see, the State Electoral Commission is trying to see how to get around it. The thing is, even with the system and the thuggery, there are bright fruits coming forward. So the more we get critical numbers to engage politically, the harder it is to rig. And we understand by experience that rigging happens when very few people turn up, like when we have 37 people of the voter population turning up. In every polling unit in Nigeria, we probably have 500 to 700 votes per unit. And when 100 people turn up, 600 votes are now left to be messed with. Whereas if we can have 400 to 500 people or 400 people turn up the polling unit, two things happen. Smaller numbers of votes are available for people to mess around with, and then the larger number of people can protect the votes. So by encouraging young people to participate, get their voters card, go out to vote and be voted for, we in many ways try to fix this broken system, while we look forward to what His Excellency said about moving from this present broken system and working on our constitution to allow us practice the parliamentary system that we were practicing before, which actually is the utopia, what is the future, how we can move this country forward. So in rounding up about good governance and strategic nation building towards the 21st century, the world is led today not by natural resources, but human capital. And the human capital, there are great young people that have the knowledge and can connect to the world and offer services, regardless of where they are. I remember when I was in Lagos, I went to the Eco-Atlantic. I was shown around the Eco-Atlantic city, and the people said that the GDP of Lagos would grow by 20% in 10 or 20 years. I told them, well, it would grow 20 times in 20 years. I said, well, the growth in Akwa Ibom State will grow at the same pace. And they asked me, how is that going to happen? I told them, because the technology that would drive these companies will come from Akwa Ibom State, because Akwa Ibom would be the tech capital. Looking at the foundation that Obong Attah laid down and the kind of technology experts that we have across in the state. So regardless of where we are in the world today, technology and knowledge has been able to transform the world. And so what we need to do as a country and as a state is to invest in certain critical areas that the world, sustainable development itself, states that when you take education, healthcare, agriculture, technology, and research and development, and invest critically in these sectors, anywhere in the world, even if it's in the Sahara Desert, you will transform the place. You put 15% in education, 10% in agriculture, 10 in healthcare, 1% in research and development, 5 in tech, you transform the whole place. So what we need to do is very easy. Rather than spend a lot of money in it, infrastructural development, whether it's in roads and building this and that, they are necessary. But at this point, where we know that in 2025, Norway that has the biggest oil reserve and $1.5 trillion of oil money, they are actually moving from oil, and their country is moving away from petrol and diesel cars in 2025, 5 years from now. The UK in 2030, in the next 10 years, will not be making petrol and diesel cars. Germany, France, the rest of Europe are moving out in the next 20 years. So realistically, in Nigeria, we have two governments, 2023 and the next, to turn things around. We don't have the time to mess about. We don't have the time to see what works and what wouldn't work. What we need are credible people to come forward and take this broken system, fix it with hammer. And that would mean engaging politically, looking away from the existing political.
Go ahead.
Was I unmuted?
Go ahead, go straight ahead. We had someone come into the house and I needed to mute him.
Oh. Okay. So in going forward, moving this country and moving our state forward, we would need credible people to come in and take on the system. And we would also ask the president to do the needful and our senators to make sure the electoral bill comes to pass, and also encourage, I mean, we are working every day with the international community, that's with the visa ban. And I'm telling you, the first case from Africa at the ICC challenging election results, not because we want to change it, but because we want to put in punitive measures against people that will use the same style and system to and get in and eventually transform our political space. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Iboro, too. We've gotten a whole lot of insight, and the chief of what I've gathered is that there's a need for us to create a system where we can identify those possible or potential leaders, recruit them. So the entire recruitment process, from the electoral reforms to even identifying or promoting quality, hands to come on board our polity. And then, of course, the need to also empower whoever we find within the space. Empowerment, of course, brings us to mentorship, which is where it will be most serving to have everyone who has achieved the wisdom and experience that cannot be bought to organize. I mean, I'm looking forward to, a grand mentorship, because if you have a gentleman that within the scarce resources of his era conceived and imagined and conceptualized the gamut of infrastructural or impact investment opportunities, then it only goes to show that we need to organize orientation courses for people who are leaders at the subnational level. And no one is better suited than one who has seen that part of leadership and also has the wisdom to guide such leaders. So mentorship is critical from all that we have gathered, and it's important that we find within ourselves the means and ways to empower ourselves. Architect Nyaituk has been waiting to share, the way forward with regards to how do we build this nation. I shared with an infrastructure group that it's so easy for you to have, I think, about 67 I'm sorry, okay. We have about 67 to 70 direct and indirect folks working in the average 3-bedroom apartment. So if you're looking for one sure way to create jobs, to create impact, housing is the way to go. And trust me, everything around the country, I also shared with another group that the corruption that we seem to suffer today is largely as a function of insecurity. The moment people begin to conceive, they're afraid of where they'll lay their heads, what happens when they fall sick, how they end up feeding their families. These three insecurities which surround the basic needs of man, the moment it stares you in the face, it begins to demand that you look for ways to cut corners if you are not morally sound. And the home ownership scheme, the mortgage finance scheme shows that a man proudly owns a home after working, whether in the private or public sector, for 20 years. He knows that he has a home. He knows that he has shelter over his head. So the insecurities of trying to be government by yourself or to yourself gets largely reduced. So nation building, thankfully, is a function of architectural design, because before you build, you must design. So how do we go about the mantle? Thankfully, we have our elder statesman, but the mantle has moved from generation to generation. My generation understands some of these issues, are also getting more responsible by the day. But how do we build this nation? What is that not shortcut, what is that silver bullet, what is that solution that you would prefer beyond all that we've discussed that would take us from where we are to where we ought to be? So once you share your perspective, would allow our elder statesman to give his closing thoughts such that we can begin to wind down. Thank you very much, Architect Nyaito.
Before Nyaito takes on and before we lose, before the elder statesman leaves the platform, wouldn't it be okay to look at the charts and what is coming in, because I know that he will want to quickly answer questions and go away. Wouldn't you want us to present it to him, ask those questions, so that if he has any answers, it may help, in guiding the conversations going forward. If you want me, if you don't mind, I may want to read out some of them.
I took notes. So why don't you tell me? I took notes, careful notes. But let me come in, and if there's anything I've missed out, then you can ask more questions, please. Okay. Because I think I took very careful notes.
Please go right ahead.
Okay.
Udema, is that all right?
Yes, please go ahead, Your Excellency.
Okay. Now, first of all, I owe you an apology. That's something for another day. Now, I picked a few things here that really I want us to re-examine or be at the back of our minds. Let me start with Hannibal Uwaifo. I want to say clearly that centralization came with the military when they introduced the unitary system of governance. They moved from democratic system or federal system, they moved from federal system to a unitary system, and that is what has been the bane of a problem. We've thrown away all the other military vestiges. The only thing we've kept is this system of sharing money. And that's what makes it seem like Nigeria was always on this. No, Nigeria was not built on those kind of foundations. And I think we have to go back to a completely different kind of foundation, which is the federal system rather than a unitary system. Now, I missed the name of your co-host, but he raised issues. How do we get this constitutional restructuring? Please let me make a very clear statement that I do not believe that the North is the problem. It would seem so because they seem to have benefited, and I use the word seem, to have benefited from this system. But I want to tell you that from what I have seen, and I've lived in the North for a very long time, the average Northerner can be very content with what he has, but if you tell him this belongs to you, he will want more. So if we get to the point where we can just agree, and it ties in with what Iboro said, you may not see the connection immediately, but I can see the connection right away. Of the person with the yam and the knife, that man didn't grow that yam. None of them created Nigeria. None of them had the knife. We gave it to them by putting them in the position there. So if they know that there will be neither yam nor knife, they will ask, what next? And we will tell them it's a federal system that has to be next, otherwise nothing. That's why my statement to the last inauguration of Governors Forum as the past president of the forum was to say, we must devise our own perestroika or perish. And there's no denying that fact. It will totally perish if we don't. Because if the person says that and says, oh, I'm a senator, therefore I will insist on this system, if there is no country, there'll be no Senate. That's what people have to understand. And so there'll be no question of anybody thinking that, oh, I must hold on to this because it suits me. When the chips are down, everybody will see that this system suits nobody and therefore has to be changed. And Dr. Archibong, your idealism, I've heard this, but I'm sorry, I don't mean this for you to misunderstand this. It seems very theoretical to talk about the strengthening institutions. How are you going to strengthen? The laws are there. Take a very simple law like stop at traffic lights. Who stops at traffic lights? Today, everybody has said, Mr. President, change the service chiefs. Even the North that we thought wanted the service chiefs, the North has said, change it. The president says no. So where do we go? So you can see that we have to have a system that is personality proof, person proof. We can have a system where nobody can say, because I'm the head, I must do as I please, regardless of what the people want or what the people think. Let me say this. When we fought the resource control fight, the Chief Justice of the Federation said, there can be no boundary dispute between federating units and the Federation, because it's the aggregate boundaries of the federating units that defines the boundary of the Federation. And yet, the Supreme Court went and said that the boundary of a literal state is at the low water mark. Then I asked the UN the question, because it was at the time Nigeria was applying to expand its exclusive economic zone. So how can a country have two boundaries? The boundary of Nigeria is defined by the boundary of the littoral states and stops at the low water mark. So how can Nigeria be asking for an expansion of the economic zone deep into the sea? So you can see that you can see strengthen judicial, but there's a limit to what you can do within a particular system. It is the system that must be corrected, the system that must be changed before we can move forward. That judiciary could not have said what it did if there wasn't the kind of influence that they were suffering from. And so really, we have to, and it has to be sudden. And I think Iboro, who talked about the yam, and then I also went on to say, we do not have time. We do not have time. Nobody has time for the luxury of gradually changing this, gradually changing that. NSAS demonstration has shown us that, believe me, I'm not a prophet of doom, but we can be looking for end times if we don't end this system. The system must end, and I think everybody's got to the point now where they agree. So we should be looking at how do we proceed to end the system. And in a paper that I presented, I've said it, because the issue is always sovereignty. The sovereignty remains with the people, but we hand it over to the National Assembly. So the National Assembly must be involved. The National Assembly must be made to see that there will be no Nigeria unless certain things begin to happen. And once they see that, they will empower the president to convoke an assembly that will come out and give us a constitution which will be subjected only to a referendum. Once that referendum passes it, that is the referendum, that will be the constitution for Nigeria made by Nigerians. That is a very quick summary of what I think I want to say. Let's not be scared that the North will stop it. Let's not be scared that the National Assembly will not agree. They all are Nigerians, and they want Nigeria to survive. And the only way Nigeria can survive is to say that this system cannot continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Obong. Obong, Victor, Attah, I appreciate your intervention and some clarity. You know, I believe that in a platform of this nature, you speak to people, your age mates and your political mates. So we could be hearing on diluted terms what you think represents their mindset. But every time we as you know, the mid and the younger generation are engaging, the feedback that is comes out very, very, very strong. Mm-hmm. But I must thank you, and I'm sure we will take a cue from your vast experience and quite understand. But I have a comment here to make, and which is what Iboro was talking about. There's a difference between political activism and political activity. And for us in TBAN, my name is Pascal, by the way, Pascal Odibo. I'm the head of strategy in TBAN. And this is one of the things we've identified. That is one thing to be, I mean, and I'm making an analogy now of the Greek mythology. People used to say that the Greeks say there are three kinds of people that occupy a space, either a geography, the tribesman, the idiot, and the citizen. Most times the idiot is defined as those ones who don't, it's not the way it's defined in the English language. These are guys who don't just bother. They don't care. They have their generator, everything is working. So what's your problem? Why do you want to rock the boat? I'm not interested who's the president. I don't want to know who's the senator. Please just leave me alone. Things are just working within myself. I've created my own community. So what's your problem? Now there is a second people called the tribesmen. These are guys who perceive everything from a tribal perspective. Is it from my country? Is it from my state? Is it from my village? Is it my tribesman? Everything is seen from that spectacle. But of course, the third, which is the citizen, is when you begin to know that power really comes, which is what you are talking about, sir, comes from the people. This is the citizen who is interested, who is politically aware, and is no longer just doing political activism, because political activism really puts you in a cul-de-sac. But political activity begins to bring you to the conveyor belt of political recruitment, where you are now become, and that's what Odibo was talking about, the kind of mentorship and the kind of work, the engagement in the political process that enables you to stand and speak for your people and ensure that the system is adequately handled in a way and in a manner that people will say, you know what, I believe in this country. Where we are now, sir, I'm just going to ask a question. How do you strengthen an institution? I keep hearing that. It was in our presence here, sir. It was in our presence, and we spoke about it. That the judiciary, there was an onslaught on the judiciary. A major onslaught on the judiciary. Their homes broken, and under a guise that there was some corruption, and that brought fear, a certain grip on the judiciary. And men of goodwill, some kept quiet, some spoke. But it was clear to me at that time that this was a signal of what was ahead of us. So, sir, I'm just asking, as a senior citizen, what would you suggest represents a critical, credible way to hold the system accountable, irrespective? How do you get the president? I give you, you just give the instance. Remove and move the senior executives of the military echelon, and because it is 2 days ago, in the past 24 hours, 43 people have been beheaded in the north. Yet, no, what do you do? What is it that the system can do to get people that hold institutions of the powers of the institution to become uncomfortable?
This system is powerless to change what you have just described. That is really the essence of what I am trying to say. I made a statement the other day, and the way it was quoted, it sounded like I was being, I don't know, but I said, even if you bring angels to come and administer Nigeria today, I don't think they will succeed, because the system as established now and being used now makes it impossible for the kind of strengthening that you are talking about. If what happened in America had happened in Nigeria, perhaps Trump would have been president of Nigeria today.
I agree with you.
And here you have the institution, and you have strengthened it, But within the current system that you have, you cannot strengthen it to the point where it will do its job as it is expected to. So you need an institutional change. And time is a luxury. We do not have the time. It must be now.
Thank you very much, Udeme.
Yes, so now and more than ever, we need to coordinate, we need to join hands, we need to, consolidate on the wisdom and consolidate on the energies of youth, consolidate on the passion and the commitment that we all have. And like I like to share with my friends, it is so strange that mediocrity has taken over and eaten so deep within our framework that mediocres tend to be the ones who want to chart the path for the people with capacity to follow. And until those folks also pause and realize that there's no time and begin to do the things that would change that status quo, like the paradigm shift, we all know it's not a one-day affair, it's not a momentary shift, it is a progression. And that progression starts with conversations like this, starts with action, where we convert our thoughts to make structured and deliberate ways to effect all that we wish and desire. So I'm sure that this is a good opportunity to catalyze those the necessary action, a strong catalyst in the person of TBAN as a group, and Nigeria First, and SESSP, Southeast South Professionals. These are all groups and tribes that communities that are interested in engaging beyond the talk. So I'd like to, I'm sure that Architect Nyaituk would, want to give us his closing remarks, and then I could have Hannibal wrap up for us, and then we can call it a day. It is it's been a fantastic engagement. And Architect Nyaituk, please, you have the floor so that we can, for maybe another 2 minutes.
I'm sorry to break protocol. Yes. I want to thank you for setting up this platform and for TBAN. And I want to just, as Nyaituk is coming in, to say, please recognize the existence of similar intentioned platforms and organizations and link up with them. Believe me, by the time you have a national movement thinking in the same manner, this yam and knife will disappear. There'll be a better Nigeria. That's all I want to say. Please make sure you recognize them and link up with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. We do appreciate it.
Once again, my boss has taken the words of my mouth. I belong to several of them. I belong to the Nigeria First Project. I belong to the National Consultative Front. I belong to Fixed Politics. And I can tell you authoritatively that that docile middle class, that docile, with the elites, they are starting to realize that it is foolishness for you to have 2 eyes and board a vehicle that is manned by either a partially impaired or completely blind. It doesn't make sense. So the time has come when we professionals, we the exposed, the experienced, the elite, must gravitate, we must migrate from being the comfortable and wondering what's going on. We must come into the political arena, directly or indirectly. We must get into parties. Let me say this, and I will say it with every sense of responsibility. Mr. Donald Duke said something, and I don't forget it in a hurry. He said, yeah, I have done my calculation and my analysis very well. I am loved by 70 to 80% of Nigerians, but I'm afraid to move. Now, one would wonder, if you want to get into politics and you're loved by 70 to 80% of the people, that is the landslide. He said, no, that's political naivety. What's happening is that this 70 to 80% of the people that love me, with another 10 to 15% of people that really don't care, And this 5% of people that hate me with a passion. This 5% put their money where their mouth is. These 5% are vocal, they are vicious, they take no prisoners, they are loud, and they drown the voice of over 80%. And that's the sad reality. Over 80% of Nigerians are good people, they are God-fearing people, they want what is right, but they are docile, they are complacent, they are quiet. So we are launching a campaign from all angles and sides to wake them up, to bring them up, to activate them by bringing up credible alternatives. Just today, I got a memo from the National Consultative Front for me to go through and edit and it will be made public. And very soon, we are going to have another gathering in Uyo. We are proposing that with the likes of architect Obong Victor Attah and some elders that have conscience, because we can no longer wait for them that we think have the knife and the yam. No, we will not. We are determined. We have decided. And NSAS was just a preview of coming attractions. We are going to bring the energy of the youth and add to the experience of the elderly. And we are going to change this country because enough has become enough.
I agree.
Thank you very much. Thank you absolutely much, Ezekiel. Good to see you again with your white hair. Thank you very much. I think you have one more person to make an intervention, and then of course I will want to make one word and some kind of words for us on from Tiban. Yeah.
Yes, Hannibal, please go straight ahead. Closing thoughts. Hello, Hannibal.
Is Hannibal still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm listening and I'm still listening. I believe that the position of the Southeast South professionals, and by and large, our position in the African bar concerning development of the continent, the tallies with what His Excellency Obong Victor Attah said. The killings, the stealing, what have you, are a symptom of a serious ailment. So when we go around shouting about this thing aren't going to stop, the country, the way it is presently constituted, can force anybody to be head of state, can force anybody to be anything. Even someone who has no qualification can become a doctor. That's the system. So we need to correct the system. There is not going to be stop in killing. How did Boko Haram come to be? For a long time, the northern flanks were porous. Nothing was happening. They were only checking those who were carrying bags of rice and carrying whatever. They were not interested. Collecting more, even in the airports. What system allows people who are not suited for anything? What system throws a man from deep Castilla to become constitutional police in Akwa Ibom, where he knows nothing about? I'm not being ethnic now. I'm saying, how did we arrive at this situation? We need to re-examine what we're doing. We're talking about the United States today. Someone did mention very respectfully that, oh, if it was Nigeria, Trump would remain head of state. For how did Trump not remain head of state? It was the system. Now, how do you foist a system of election on the entire country? People have talked about state police. Oh, the governors might abuse this. The police were investigating today that became NSAS, that became the focal point of NSAS protest. Were they done by states? We need to be serious and deal with issues that concern us. The system is faulty. We need to restructure this country. We need to deal with the foundation. We need constitutional reviews, and everybody can see it. And that's where the changes will start from. Thank you very much, guys, for inviting me. I thank His Excellency, I thank Udeme, and I thank everyone, the Southeast South professional as a group. We have the DASES 2035 agenda. We have, which is the development for the Southeast and the South-South, and its focal point is actually resting on restructuring of this country. And until we get there, I'm afraid all the stories you are telling will continue like that for the next 50 years. Thank you very much. I'm happy to have.
Hannibal, thank you very much. We appreciate your intervention. Now, before I hand over to Udeme, I just wanted to make a comment, and I think this comment may bring us to some execution. You know, strategy without execution is phantasmagoria. Is a literally phantasmagoria, and this is where I think that I align with Nyaetok on the need for people to get politically active. There is a place for political activism, but there is a place for that should move to the place of political activity. There is a voting bloc that is, and Ethel mentioned it, that is yet to be, that can change the status quo. There is a voting bloc which is just getting up, and the system, the environment is opening up. And I think that I want to challenge us, for those of us that are in this group, and those of us that have other groups that we have, that there is absolute need not to start saying 2023 is far. It's not far. Now is the time to get politically active. Let your groups gather, just as Nyaetok has mentioned. Let the alliances begin. Let there be handshake across. Let us speak to our brothers in the north. Let them know, just as Obong has mentioned, if we are not careful, there will not be any Senate, there will not be any National Assembly, there will be no yam, there will be no knife. So we might as well respect one another and recalibrate the nation so that everybody will be happy. For as long as this whole system stands as it is, everybody will be unhappy. And one of the worst people you can deal with is when a man is unhappy and he is showing on the face. You know, so I just thought that it's good to mention here that we need to move from this political colloquium into a place of political activity, because the space is open and we must take hold of that space even now. Udeme?
Yes, thank you so much. As valid as all the conversation and input is, if we do not move straight to some deliberate action, then we can continue and talk. But first thing that we've done is engage. We have the leadership, we have the mentorship, we have the willing minds and hearts, we have committed and passionate people from across board. And trust me, this is beyond partisanship. This is strictly a function of citizenship. It's a function of patriotism. It's a function of ensuring that it's cheaper for us to fix our nation than to begin to convert Naira, as tough as it is to find, to look for, you know, a life elsewhere outside these climes. For those of us who do not have that as an option, we only have one responsibility: to fix our country. It is too expensive to consider relocating your entire household or entire family, and wherever you go to, of course, it would be in your mind and heart that you could have done the little you could. Wherever you find yourself, it's a function of systems that were created by other people. And the truth also remains that the diaspora community, I see a lot of my friends from diaspora who are very committed and passionate about changing this sphere around here. If we can all do it one step at a time. I shared with a few friends the other day that $100 across all the diasporans can drive serious impact locally. More than often, you find out that the folks who we find in public space do not find any competition. It's a winner takes it all. It's also a function of you know, not even being able to grapple with the responsibility that where they find themselves, because either they were not prepared or they got into those positions by default. But the guys who are out there, who have seen systems work, who understand that, look, governance is not about one individual. governance is a function of the entire community, can join hands with the passionate and committed folks down at home to see what we can do to push the needle. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. If we do not do it, then you're going to have your resources being bled by relations who are also dependent on you instead of doing the actual stuff that can change things in the entrepreneurial space, change things in the basic knowledge sharing environment. And trust me, half of what we suffer as a nation is a function of ignorance. People, hide under ignorance to act arrogant. And you can tell that arrogance and ignorance are closely related. So wherever you find leadership display arrogance is a function of ignorance. And then we must find a way to share how best it's done, global best practices, and who else is in a better position to do that. These are the people who have seen how systems work around and outside the country. So let us try to bring back some of that knowledge. Let us try to bring back some of those deliberate actions and ensure that we do all that we can to teach, tutor every follower. And trust me, followership is a stronger element because that is where leadership derives from. So if the followers do not understand also that they are the employers of the 20,000 maximum that you find from the president to the last councillor, they're not up to 20,000 people. So why would 20,000 people be messing up with the minds of 200 million people? So these are the questions. We need to understand how much power we have and how much if we intend to, or if we're serious about it, how much we can change not just the narrative, but the action as some of us have shared today. So on this very exciting note, I want to thank my friends from diaspora, Okon, Anekan Okon, Nwana. I see a lot of people. Now, a few questions have been asked, and I would like for no other person, because I cannot end this meeting. Somebody has to make a toast to a Nigeria that we expect, a Nigeria that we imagine, a Nigeria that we pray for, a Nigeria that would make all of us comfortable. And I would like that closing toast to be done by our elder statesman, Obong Victor Attah, to toast to a Nigeria that you wish for, to toast to an Akwa Ibom that you wish for, to toast to a generation that you have seen, and perhaps happy to say that, yes, indeed, the mantle can be handed over to you because we're confident that you can deliver. So please, shall we have that toast, and then we can wrap up this very exciting session. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, again. God continue to bless, preserve you in good health and soundness of mind, and may He replicate in you or through you as many leaders as you come across in Akwa Ibom and Nigeria. Thank you again. Please do a toast to the Nigeria that you wish and expect, and the Akwa Ibom that you also wish and expect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nana.
Yes, sir.
Actually, you've done the toast, because I have always insisted the Nigeria that we are advocating is not an unknown Nigeria. This is a Nigeria that we have been familiar with, and it worked. It worked to the extent that Altine was elected twice as the mayor of Enugu, a Muslim from Kano, and we were citizens. At that point, Pascal, everybody saw themselves as a citizen. This division into tribesmen and into idiots, it has come result of idiocy. So we must have the Nigeria that will get rid of the idiocy that has got us into this imbecile state where we think nothing else but feed on oil. Let us look at a Nigeria that can be self-motivating, a Nigeria that can gain the strength to grow from within itself, a Nigeria that will be good for all of us, our children, our grandchildren, and the future generations, because the world is not about to end in any hurry. And the same for our states. Let us have a government that will know that the prime purpose of being there, as Yaitu has quoted from the Constitution of Nigeria, the welfare of the people. And we want to develop the people in every aspect of life. We thank God for His mercies and pray that this will come to be for Akwa Ibom and for Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Amen. Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Obong
you so
Victor
much.
Attah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all our attendees and attenders and all the panelists. We appreciate all your comments, and we hope we will take it a step further from here. So I guess the next one is when?
In 2 weeks. In a
In 2
fortnight,
weeks.
we
Okay,
will
then.
engage again, and we'll
right.
continue to engage.
Bye-bye, everybody, and God bless
Thank you. Good night. Have a blessed week, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, sir. Huh? Yes,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
on Facebook. Thank you, Facebook Live and YouTube. Thanks, everyone. God bless. Have a wonderful week ahead.